Hi everyone. So we are already in Module 5. It's kind of snuck up on us and it's a busy week. We are already turning in our final rhetorical analysis essay. And I wanted to first look at a little overview of the module. Our final essay is going to be due Thursday night. Then we're going to move right into our next essay, but I don't have Saturday night published yet, but don't worry, nothing is due Saturday night, okay? So we're just going to focus on this, and I'll open this up later in the week with a little announcement. But the first thing I want to do is something I think is really important because I'm afraid I've seen a few signs here and there that some of the students might be misunderstanding what the focus of our writing project 2 is. And so I want to do a little review. So all last week we talked about rhetoric, okay? That's key, the rhetorical choices that writers and communicators use to persuade an audience. That is the focus of our writing project 2. It's not the topics that they write about, it's how they persuade. So if we go here into our Module 5, and I've added some of the student examples and a little handout on thesis statements, but let's open up the assignment overview again. I highly encourage you all to watch the video again, read this over closely again, okay? It looks like you all have picked some really great editorials from the State Press. That's fantastic. And as you look at these and study them and form ideas of how these authors are persuading their audience of ASU students and faculty, what kind of strategies are they using? What kind of appeals are they using? What kind of methods are they using to persuade the audience? That's what the focus is, okay? And when we form those ideas, then we are going to share them with a reader, with an audience. So if we look here to write this essay, I have it broken down. We're going to introduce the essay. Our audience, we have to make that assumption that our audience has not read this essay. So if we're going to provide them with an analysis of it, we've got to introduce it to them and give them some background. So we're going to introduce it. We're going to include a short summary. That summary is the means to an end. So it's only going to be one small paragraph of this essay, just enough so that our audience knows what we're talking about. Then we're going to get into the main body, which is the analysis. Okay, and if you look here, right here in the bold, remember, you are not responding to the ideas or topic addressed within the editorial. Rather, you are analyzing the writing choices of the author. Okay, it doesn't matter what this author is writing about. It doesn't matter if you are interested in it, if you agree with it, if you disagree with it. That's neither here nor there because that's not what we are focusing on. We are analyzing the writing choices, okay? So the choices of the author, that's the main subject of this paper. We are stating what the author is doing and whether they were successful or not and why they are doing it. Why are they making these choices? If their audience is an audience of college students in Arizona, why are they making these choices, okay? So here's all the criteria. Let's look at some of these examples. Let's look at this first one really quickly. If I can go through this quickly. And so we look here, look over these examples. Obviously, you're not going to copy them, but they offer you some good examples of the genre and how it is written. And so if you look at this, look at the thesis down here. Here's the thesis. Now, I'll argue with this. I will say this. This is a great essay, but this is a very vague thesis. So Gallon effectively appears to her audience through pathos, logic, and ethos, making a compelling case. Okay? Basically, this says, honestly, okay, it's as detailed as Gallon effectively uses words to make her case. This doesn't tell me anything. Okay? How does she use pathos? How does she use logic? How does she use ethos? But one thing this thesis does is show you the type of focus you should have, okay? And so be a little bit more specific here. I don't want to see any thesis statements that just say they use pathos, logos, and ethos. That tells the reader nothing. But that's the focus, okay? And then they're going to come up with three or four things that stood out to them as they broke down the essay. And they're writing about them and explaining what the student does and bringing in evidence from the article to show the reader what the student does. And so let's look at this one right here. The emotional connection to the ASU student audience gives her opinion some ethos, but Galen doesn't leave it at that. Galen also gives a very logical reasons for why ASU needs support to support student mental health. Fantastic topic sentence. So it transitions from the earlier paragraph on the emotional appeals that she makes, and now it's saying, okay, but she presents logical reasons. Okay, that's the claim. So what kind of evidence does she provide, this author provide? Okay, her first main point is to do this. So she brings in quotes, shows the reader right from the essay how this editorial author is doing this, is using a logical appeal. Okay, and then they end it. These logical appeals are incredibly effective about keeping the student readers invested while stating why it's vital that ASU invest more in mental health. See, this paragraph is wonderful. It has a nice topic sentence at the beginning, has the evidence from the article that shows why that topic why the claim in that topic sentence is legit. And then it ends by kind of closing out this final statement. Okay, that's the type of focus that we are going to be focused on, not the topic, not the issue being talked about. How the author, what strategies they use to persuade the audience. This one is a little bit different because they're looking at two different articles and they're comparing the rhetorical strategies. They're not comparing the topics, they're comparing the rhetorical strategies. And look at this thesis right here. Okay, both Bartlett and Tenori appeal to the emotions of their audience successfully through pathos. Here's the key: using devices such as first-person narrative, inclusive pronouns, and hypothetical dialogue and shifts in tone. Yay, that's awesome, because that not only tells the reader how they use pathos, it provides a roadmap. So you know as you're reading this, first you're going to learn how these authors use first-person narrative. Okay, then we're going to learn about how they use inclusive pronouns, then how they use hypothetical dialogue, and then shifts in tone. Those are the different sections, the different paragraphs of this essay. So you know exactly what's coming up. This is a great example. Okay, let's look over here at the type of thesis statements that we're going to be using. Okay, an analysis thesis statement is a little bit different because you're not sharing your opinion on the topic. You're sharing your analysis of the methods, okay? So there's still going to be a clear thesis statement, just like the ones that I've talked about, but a rhetorical analysis thesis statement demands that you do three things. You reference, so this thesis statement, before I get into those three things, it needs to stand alone. Like if you handed me only your thesis statement and I wasn't able to read anything else about your paper, I should know exactly, just from reading that thesis statement, I should know exactly what your paper is about without ever having to ask you questions, okay? So it should have three things in that statement, and it can be one or two sentences. It doesn't have to be one, but it needs to be the culmination of the introduction. So it needs to include the reference to the author and what is being analyzed in that statement, okay? Not just earlier in the paragraph, in that statement. That statement needs to identify the specific rhetorical strategies or techniques your essay will analyze, and it needs to identify the impact. Were they successful? It needs to include that judgment. Okay, was the author successful? Okay, were these smart choices? Okay, why? Then you'll use the body to explain and to bring in evidence, but you need to be very specific in that thesis. And here are some good examples of thesis statements down here, give you some ideas. Read over this, and it also tells you some things to avoid, okay? Remember, a thesis is never just a statement of purpose. It's never a question. You're sharing a clear opinion in a thesis statement, okay? Great, because then right away we're going to get into our peer review. And Tuesday, I know it's coming up fast, but that's this class, 8 weeks. And so here is the peer review sheets. Get this in there by Tuesday morning. And then you will be assigned 2 peers and you'll give everyone some feedback. And these drafts can be kind of rough. I mean, they're the first draft, so don't worry about that. Get in as much as you can, but be generous. Most of the points are awarded here for giving the feedback, not for receiving it. So make sure that you use the worksheets and you're generous with one another. You help one another improve. You offer suggestions about specific points that they make, that the author does. I can mention the second paragraph on page 2 and they do this. Don't just say, oh, this looks great, because that doesn't help one another. All right? Then what we're going to do, we're going to go next. And then that's the final, it's the final submission by Thursday night. So remember, let me just go home here. I have office hours, Zoom office hours on Tuesday and Thursdays between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, Arizona time. Okay? If you want to pop in, and all you have to do is click right here. And that will bring you into the Zoom room. If I'm with another student, you'll just need to hang out there in the waiting room for a little bit. But I'll see that you're there and I'll bring you in one by one and we can talk about your project. I can answer any questions or anything like that, okay? Good luck this week and please let me know if you have questions, okay? Bye-bye.